Is AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling going to work together? We're going to talk about it all right here on Destination PW. Stay tuned.
You have arrived at your destination.
Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are just browsing YouTube videos and you somehow landed on this video and you like what you hear, click that subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell. This way you get notified on all the latest content. My name is Tony. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Tango with Tango, and we are talking about NJPW and AEW because we have some insane updates to what's actually going on. Now, if you guys didn't know, it was recently announced that Chris Jericho will be competing at Wrestle Kingdom 14 on night 2. Which this is going to be a 2-night extravaganza. Chris Jericho is going to be there. And of course, everybody wants to know what's happening with NJPW and AEW because now, everybody wants to know about this working relationship. Everybody wants to see if they're going to work together or whatever it may be. And we've talked about this on the channel many, many times. And I just had to put this out there. It's still not happening. Yeah, that's right. NJPW and AEW are now working together despite Moxley being a former US champion and despite the fact that Chris Jericho will be there in January. It's really insane that there is like this crossover in pro wrestling right now. So for an example, Impact Wrestling, AAA, AEW, MLW, and all these other promotions are like intertwined with each other. MLW just announced that they're working with AAA. AAA works with AEW. MLW stars are in AEW, but there is no crossover. I mean, the list goes on. It gets really confusing. It gets really weird, but that's pretty much where we're at in pro wrestling. So why isn't AEW working with NJPW? Like, what is the situation? Well, let's kind of start from how we know this is not happening. The Young Bucks have come out and actually said this themselves that it's not happening. People on Twitter have been asking during a recent Q&A online. Well, it's been confirmed. So we know AEW has put their foot down and said it's not happening. They don't want people to get excited about it, despite the fact that Chris Jericho has been announced for Wrestle Kingdom. But why do people think there's going to be a working relationship? Does a working relationship between the two companies even help? I mean, we're going to talk about that all in today's video, but I want to know what you guys think. So don't forget to leave a comment down below. Now, let's talk about where this all stems from. It stems from the Chris Jericho involvement with New Japan. But for those who don't know, Chris Jericho was working with New Japan before AEW. And part of Chris Jericho's contract in AEW is that he is allowed to take dates with New Japan. And of course, New Japan knows that he's going to be competing for AEW in the United States or whatever. So that's a pretty big deal when you look at how big this contract is, because nobody in the WWE are contracted to work any sort of competitors. And yet AEW and New Japan right now have a situation where one guy is part of both rosters and he's competing on both shows. The situation that's really interesting is NJPW will not acknowledge Chris Jericho's AEW title. They will not acknowledge the fact that he's part of AEW. And AEW is actually not acknowledging Chris Jericho's involvement with New Japan. Same with Jon Moxley. So if you guys don't remember when Jon Moxley actually won the United States Championship in New Japan, he didn't bring that belt to AEW. There was no talks about Jon Moxley being in New Japan for AEW. AEW is creating a lot of noise right now. They are buzzing. People are talking about their weekly television. People are excited. And I get it, because as a pro wrestling fan, it's something different. It looks different. It feels different. But this is a bad thing if New Japan and AEW can't work together. And we're going to get to the big point here in which we have to talk about New Japan's new extension. They're expanding to the United States market. And I think this is part of the problem. So New Japan still has a relationship with ROH. Whatever that whole relationship is at this point, it's kind of unknown because we've seen very little involvement from both together. But ever since Madison Square Garden, things went downhill for the two. But New Japan has been very loyal to ROH, and honestly, I don't understand why. On top of that, New Japan hasn't really been too happy with the idea of, the Young Bucks and Kenny and everybody leaving to start their own promotion, especially when these guys were kind of like the faces for New Japan. So it looks like New Japan, in a way, is staying loyal to Ring of Honor, while at the same time, they do not want to help give AEW a rub. But one has to really wonder, let's just kind of slow it down for a second. Let's really think about this, right? If Chris Jericho goes to Wrestle Kingdom and he is still the AEW World Champion, Is he able to bring that belt to New Japan? Like, these are questions that we need answers to. And I think that's kind of been the big problem here is even though there's no working relationship and the Young Bucks have already confirmed that there won't be a working relationship, how long until you actually acknowledge the elephant in the room? You know, one of the things about AEW is they acknowledge, you know, Jack Swagger's involvement, being a former world champion in WWE, obviously being a undefeated competitor in Bellator. These are things you acknowledge, but you don't acknowledge the New Japan part. And New Japan won't acknowledge the AEW part. Like, you need this working relationship to exist if you want to take on WWE. Because for those who are struggling to watch WWE, I'm with you. I understand it's a little bit of a hard time right now for fans. While there are some things I like and dislike, we need to have options for everybody. Having AEW represent the North American branch of AEW or of New Japan is crucial to New Japan. But New Japan wants to do an expansion, and it looks like slowly but surely we're going to see them start phasing out US-based companies. We're going to start seeing them phase out Ring of Honor, and in a sense, I feel like we have already seen that. So New Japan has launched New Japan Pro Wrestling of United States. And basically what they're going to do is create a touring brand throughout the United States in which it's going to have their own shows, whatever it may be, in the United States. It's going to have its like own roster and its own thing, and it's going to be unique to the United States. And that is something that New Japan is doing. Very similar to how WWE has like NXT UK. They're working on NXT Latin America, NXT Asia, NXT, I don't know at this point, Germany. I mean, like, they're trying a million things right now for NXT, right? But just as NXT and WWE are looking to do that, that's essentially what New Japan is doing by creating a brand in the United States. And as part of their expansion, it seems like they're phasing out Ring of Honor. And I think that is the problem. If you phase out Ring of Honor, you need to bring in a top company like AEW. And if you're AEW, the one thing that you really need from New Japan is the roster. That roster on New Japan Pro Wrestling is insane. And, you know, New Japan really doesn't have a presence in the United States. Their TV deal with Access is cool, but New Japan doesn't do shows like Friday Night SmackDown or Monday Night Raw or Wednesday Night Dynamite or Tuesday Night Impact Wrestling. That's not how they distribute their content. So if NJPW had their roster on AEW, people will love this working relationship. And I think it is very terrible that they don't have it. And I think it's very scary for New Japan to expand in the United States, to go full force with this expansion without teaming up with one of the big companies. Now, there were rumors that WWE were going to try and make a working relationship work with New Japan. And I don't think it's going to happen. I take those rumors with a grain of salt, because if you're WWE right now, you don't really need New Japan. Maybe it might make you look cool, right? In the sense of right now, WWE is kind of struggling to gain their popularity back because the internet fans or whatever. But if you're WWE and you worked with New Japan, it's not going to make you more money. It might make you a little bit more cooler. If you're New Japan, you might not want to be part of a watered down product. So going to AEW, a more sport centric product, is what's beneficial to you, which makes New Japan and AEW an ultimate working relationship that's beneficial for everybody. I also want to add one final thing before we conclude today's video. Impact Wrestling is on Access TV. Scott D'Amore has come out and basically said that he wants to do some stuff with any company out there who wants to work. And it's funny because they share a TV network with New Japan, but there's no mention of them working together. Obviously, Impact works with Pro Wrestling Noah, but as I mentioned in the beginning, there is a lot of companies working with a lot of companies. In order to have this wrestling company like grow, right? Whether it's AEW, New Japan, WWE, you got to have some sort of relationship with others. WWE is the one who's not necessarily doing those relationships. If you're AEW and New Japan, not only do you have a really big chance of taking down WWE in essence, but you have a really big chance to really be a big deal in the pro wrestling world. And I think that's what's most important. So a lot of stuff in today's video, guys. If you guys made it to this point, I just want to say thank you for watching. We have been doing YouTube for over a year, and I put out some very aggressive goals. I became a little bit inconsistent, trying to, live a healthier lifestyle. I kind of talked about this on the community tabs, but I'm back. I'm back for daily videos, and we're going to talk about pro wrestling, and we're going to have fun with this, guys. And I just want to say thank you for watching Destination PW. We're on our way to 30,000 subscribers sometime soon. So when we hit it, we're probably going to do something cool to give back to everybody. But hey, this is your boy Tony at Tango with Tango. I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.